Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our first NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 31 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. The Saints, of course, played last Thursday night, and a long week to prepare for the biggest game of the year and maybe the biggest game in the NFL thus far this year at CenturyLink Field against the Seahawks a week from tonight, Monday, of course. And obviously, Lenny, this is a huge game. Saints need the time to get some players healthy, and they're going to need their very best effort.
Absolutely. This is a tough place to play, as you mentioned in your story last night on SportsNola.com. Seattle hasn't lost at home since 2011. It's a very tough place to play, just as the Superdome has been for teams coming in there. And, of course, the Saints the following week will have Carolina coming in a huge NFC South showdown, which is now in prime time. So when you go back and look at it, the Saints will have gone about 6 or 7 weeks between noon kickoffs, either primetime games or the main doubleheader game. But that's what happens. Sean Payton's pointed this out before. That's what happens when you're good. They want you in those prime slots, and the nation will get a chance to see, arguably the two best teams in the NFC next Monday night, and then the following Sunday night, maybe two of the three best teams in the NFC.
Well, as I point out in the story at SportsNola.com, this schedule has proven to be incredibly difficult down the stretch. Who would have envisioned it that Tampa Bay would be very tough? They are. They're playing very good football now. They've won 2 straight. They've turned the corner, and they're talented. And, of course, St. Louis playing extremely well, and you got to go there. And the last time the Saints went there, they had a lot of trouble. They had a lot of trouble at Tampa Bay earlier this year. These are all very difficult games that will test the Saints to the nth degree.
Yeah, and in reality, if you can get a split with Carolina and win 2 of the other 3, you're still going to win the NFC South because you're going to own the tiebreakers over Carolina, no matter how they would finish up. The best they could finish up would be 4-1. If the Saints go 3-2, they've got the game edge right now. They would still win a division, but obviously, as you look at the immediate future here, the 1 seed is at stake on Monday night. If you lose to Seattle next Monday night, forget about it. It's over. You're 2 back with 4 to play, and you don't have the tiebreaker. Seattle's got to win 2 of their last 4, and they would clinch the 1 seed. But if you can win, now you're tied, and you have the tiebreaker. And like you mentioned, the simplest thing to do is run the table, which will be very difficult. But if you can run the table and win the last 5, everything has to come through New Orleans. And all you got to do is look at history. The Saints have been, at least in recent history, have not lost at home in the playoffs, and they've never won on the road in the playoffs. So you need to be able to play as much as you can in New Orleans.
Agreed, and I really do believe that the formula is 4 out of 5, including a win over Seattle and a split with Carolina. If that happens, I really do think the Saints will get home field advantage because I think the Seahawks will lose another game somewhere along the line, in particular at San Francisco, their big rival and a team that wants to beat them very badly. As far as LSU is concerned, really their best performance of the year, hands down, across the board. The conditions were not great, and their offense was just pounding the rock big time. Mettenberger threw the ball well, didn't make mistakes, and their defense, I don't know where they've been all year, but they sure showed up against A&M for a second straight year, and Lenny, a lot of young players really stepped forward.
Yeah, and it's we've talked about this at previous times during the year that you needed to see more of this influx of young players perhaps, and more and more continue to be a big part of what it is that they're doing, and I guess that's encouraging for the future as well. This is a team that's not going to play in a BCS bowl game this year. Probably best case scenario is you win Friday against Arkansas and things break the way you wanted to break and you end up in the Cotton Bowl. And that would be a very rewarding finish for this team if that can happen. Finish the same place you started the year. But it does look encouraging, and it's amazing to me after what LSU did last year in College Station and now what they've done this year. Are we going to see more teams try to use a similar type blueprint to try and stop Johnny Football? Of course, they've only got a couple more chances because you would fully expect he's going to be gone to the league next year. And you know what else it brings into question? How effective, when Manziel does get to the NFL, how effective is he going to be?
We'll see. Tulane definitely going to a bowl game now, and a conference championship is still in sight at Rice this coming weekend after a demonstrative win over UTEP this past weekend. If they beat Rice, then the conference championship's perhaps on the line, and then you are not sure about bowl games. If you lose to Rice, it's pretty evident you're going to stay home and play in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl.
You would think so. It's interesting in some of the New Orleans Bowl discussion over the last few days. You would expect, on Saturday, a couple of big games, obviously Tulane at Rice, but the other one to keep an eye on is in Lafayette. UL Lafayette at home against UL Monroe could pretty much wrap up a conference championship with a win on Saturday. And would they be coming here for a third straight year, or are they looking at the possibility of maybe trying to go somewhere else? Could they have some options to go to Mobile for the GoDaddy.com Bowl? Would they have the opportunity to go to Shreveport for the Independence Bowl, perhaps, or I guess it's now the Advocare V100 Bowl, at least for one more year. But those types of things, would they be in play for the Raging Cajuns and not coming here? And what is Tulane's situation going to be? You'd like to, if you get the dream matchup, this is the one that the folks on right down the street from us here at the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation have wanted since it became Sunbelt versus Conference USA. If you can get that Tulane versus UL Lafayette matchup, it's going to be a huge crowd in the Dome.
Well, if the choices are Shreveport, Mobile, or the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, that's a no-brainer. They'll come back to New Orleans for a third year. As far as the Pelicans are concerned, now comes the fun part. They start playing, with all due respect, some good basketball teams because they've played a very light schedule to this point. Not to diminish winning 3 straight. They were favored to win all 3 at home. They won all 3 at home. Now they're back to even. Now they'll find out what they're really all about, starting with San Antonio tonight and a good Golden State team in town tomorrow night.
Yeah, let's see if they carry the momentum of the last 4.5 minutes on Friday night over into this week. Hard to believe that a New Orleans-based team here in the last 10 years never won a game coming from 12 down in the fourth quarter. But this franchise has not done that at home since 2001 when they were still playing in Charlotte. And I think the streak was like upwards of 150 games in a row that they had lost in that scenario. So a good way to come back and win that game from 12 down with 4.5 to play. And you're right, the task does get a lot tougher. They played the second easiest schedule in the league to this point, and now it's time for some big boy basketball.
And, of course, high school football, the state playoffs continue this coming weekend with quarterfinal and semifinal games, depending on which class you're talking about. If you're confused, you're not the only one. It's all good. And, of course, you can follow all the coverage at sportsnola.com with scoreboard updates all throughout Friday night. We'll have previews of the games all during the week this week at sportsnola.com as well. Don't miss Sports Nola TV tonight, Monday night, 6 p.m. Ricky Jackson, Torrance Small, Brian Ellie Walsh, and yours truly. We look forward to that, as well as another big week on WHNO with Prep Recruiting Insider and the John Forcade Show.
Actually, John's going to take the week off for Thanksgiving, but PRI will be there on Wednesday. You'll see John back next week with a look ahead to what's going to be a huge one coming up down the road between the Saints and the Panthers. But it's still a full week nonetheless, and a lot to look forward to. And you mentioned those high school playoff games, always a good sign if you're practicing Thanksgiving week. And of course, we're here on Thanksgiving. Want to wish all our fans out there a very happy Thanksgiving and a safe and happy holiday, and enjoy some turkey, enjoy some football.
Yeah, John better eat some turkey for taking off on Thanksgiving. He didn't get a note from his mom. Lenny, as always, thank you, and have a great week.
You too.
All right, that's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank, with 31 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving. God bless you.